Good evening, everybody. Jay Gurudev, and thank you for joining us to celebrate the life of Binay Krishna Baral, or known to almost all of us as Binay, or Binay Ji, meaning Dear Binay. I'd like to begin with a survey. How many people here have had the pleasure of sitting in a concert given by Binay Ji? So you know the transport that gives to us. And how many people here tonight have had any kind of musical instruction from Binay? Let's see the hands. That's really great. Binay was artist in residence here at Maharishi University of Management and Maharishi School of the Age of Enlightenment for 10 years, up until about 2 years ago. He began his study of music early in his life. His first teacher was his uncle, Sri Harambar Roy, who himself was studying under Professor Gopal Chandra Roy, a famous Bansuri flute musician of the time. Binay himself then went on to study with two world-renowned masters of the Bansuri flute and exponents of the Indian classical music tradition, Professor Pranab Mukherjee and Professor Debar Prasad Banerjee. Earlier in his life, Binay learned about Maharishi, he learned about transcendental meditation and learned to practice transcendental meditation. And that was a great blessing for him, but so fortunately for Binay, at that time Maharishi was reviving other branches of the ancient Vedic science, including the Vedic science of music, the Vedic art of music, known as Gandharva music. And as with everything Maharishi did, he gave this his attention, he brought it to light in its original purity and established its foundation in pure consciousness. And then, as with everything Maharishi did, to try everything in his power to create peace in the world, he sent teams of Maharishi Gandharva Vedic musicians around the world to play concerts to create world peace. And immediately Binay signed on for this wonderful opportunity. Starting in 1988, he performed in concert for Maharishi festivals of music for world peace in many parts of the world, all over Europe, for example, England, Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland, Yugoslavia, Holland, Russia, Israel, Scotland, Austria, Spain, Portugal, Denmark, and Sweden. And during this period of extensive touring and performing, there were three special highlights for Binay. Two of them came in 1990. One during a concert that he gave in Yugoslavia, where an audience of more than 2,000 people attended his performance and enthusiastically applauded his mastery of the Bansuri flute and the depth of his playing. And later that same year, 1990, he gave another very large concert in Rome to more than 1,300 people. These are large numbers for this kind of performance. 2 years later in Scotland, Binay played at the Edinburgh International Festival, which is one of the world's great international art festivals. He received enthusiastic reviews. And wherever he went, and wherever country he traveled, he taught, he gave workshops, and he gave interviews to the press about Maharishi Gandharva Vedic music. Binay was a seeker of knowledge. He was awarded an Indian government scholarship for advanced flute studies. He went on to earn an MA in instrumental music from Rabindra Bharati University in Calcutta. He went on, because of his love of teaching, to earn a bachelor's degree in teaching. He took an MA in philosophy. And then when he came here to Maharishi University of Management, he earned a bachelor's degree in Maharishi Vedic science. And it was Binay's deep desire, which he wrote us about last summer and phoned us about, to somehow find a way to return to Maharishi University of Management and do a PhD in Maharishi Vedic science. He absolutely loved Maharishi's knowledge. We have had many Maharishi Gandharva musicians here over the years. Without taking anything away from any of them, it's safe to say that above all of them, Maharishi just loved the intellectual component of Maharishi's teaching, and he delighted in finding connections between Maharishi Vedic science and Maharishi Gandharva Vedic music, and delighted in finding insights from Maharishi Vedic science into teaching and how he could use Maharishi Vedic science to illuminate his teaching. He performed his music regularly on All India Radio out of Calcutta. He made countless hours of audio recordings for the Maharishi channel, which began broadcasting in 1988 all over the world through 8 satellites. It was his great pride in 2000 to have given a command performance during the coronation days of Maharaja Adhiraj Rajaram, first ruler of the global country of world peace. We feel so fortunate that we've had an artist of his training and his caliber here as artist in residence for 10 years at Maharishi University of Management. He taught courses at the university, he taught courses at Maharishi School of the Age of Enlightenment. He gave individual lessons, individual instruction to people of all ages, to young children, to older people who wanted to do this in their retirement. He gave many public concerts, as we all see that most of us have experienced, and we all know what it was like to sit in the audience while Binay was playing, close our eyes, and have him take us somewhere transcendent. Remember a wonderful story that Binay told us about an interaction he had with Maharishi. And in this story, as Binay tells it, Maharishi asked him, how long will it take to teach music to the students? And Binay's answer was, a few years. And Maharishi said, can you do it faster? And Binay said, okay, maybe just 1 or 2 years. Maharishi said, can you do it faster? Maharishi said, okay, maybe I can do it in a few months. And so on it went until Binay was able to impart this knowledge very quickly. He lived a very rich and fulfilled life, and he touched the lives of so many people. Just think how many people in the world heard him play, whether live or through his broadcasts on All India Radio or through his recordings, some of which are posted on YouTube and Facebook. The number must be in the many tens of thousands of people who heard the melodies of nature coming through the enlightened consciousness of Binay Krishna Baral. And let's remember what the purpose of this music was. It was, Maharishi described Maharishi Gandharva Vedic music as the melodies of nature, and their purpose was to create balance in nature. How much balance in nature was created by this one single musician, this one single artist, whose whole life centered around a very small object, the bansuri flute, and out of that he took people to transcendental realms, so many of them around the world. So this evening we are going to be hearing from a number of people who studied with Binay or who had experiences with Binay, and we're going to start with that right now, and each of these people will introduce themselves. So let us begin that. Thank you all again for being with us here this evening. Dr. Ashley Deans.
Jai Gurudev. When the Gandharvans toured the world to create that influence of peace, and we realized how special this new knowledge that Maharishi brought out of Maharishi Gandharva Veda was, we checked with International to could we teach this to the children, and we got back the reply, yes, the children should all learn Maharishi Gandharva Veda, and they should do half and half Western music and Gandharva Veda music, that they should learn both types of music in the school. And it was really wonderful when we had our first Gandharvans come to Maharishi School, because the whole sound of Gandharva Veda is very different to what the children were used to. And it took a while for them to begin to get into Gandharva Veda, but they did. And so very soon we had very enthusiastic tabla players. We had students who were taking private sitar lessons. And then we had some flute players who came from India. And that became very popular at Maharishi School. And Binay arrived when Gandharva Ved was really established at Maharishi School. It was a very fulfilling experience to walk down the corridors and just hear Gandharva Ved music floating throughout the building. And visitors would be really astonished to go into a room and see 15, ninth grade students all playing the flute together with Binay. He absolutely loved the children. He wanted to stay longer. He was always asking if he could come back. He managed to get quite a few visa extensions. And the point there is that he was just completely devoted to Maharishi's knowledge, devoted to the children. He was happier here than he'd been for the whole of his life in this wonderful environment with all of these children enthusiastic to learn with him. And it was great whenever we had celebrations at Maharishi School because we could bring out 20 or 30 students who could play the flute with him in front of an audience. It was a great experience for the children and a great fulfillment to him as well. And so we found over the years with Binay that he instilled his love of Maharishi Gandharva Ved in the children at the school. And this has created a wonderful background for them, because now the children at the school, when they hear Gandharva Ved, it's completely different today. The sounds don't feel strange to them at all. They feel very familiar sounds. And this is what we wanted to achieve, that the children at Maharishi School would feel equally at home with Maharishi Gandharva Ved and with Western music. And we give great credit to Binay for allowing this to happen. And as the tradition continues, we hope that we can have many more teachers of Binay's quality to come back and instill this beautiful knowledge for all of us. So we give praise tonight for a wonderful life, for a man who was able to really bring the ancient wisdom to life, to be able to enliven the sounds of the eternal in the relative, to bring our awareness to the fact that there's a transcendental, non-changing reality to life, and to enliven that in the hearts of all of us, and especially in the children at Maharishi School. So thank you, Binay. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, my name is Isabel Matskin. I'm the director of the music program here at MUM. So I've had the great privilege to work with Binay since the beginning. And I've also had another privilege to be the mother of one of the students of his who studied with him for years, my daughter, who's up there in a few of the pictures. So it's been a great delight. My son also studied with him. So I wanted to just tell a very brief story. On your program, you see a quote by Maharishi on the back that reads, "Music originates where unity starts to swing in the bliss of its own unbounded existence." Dr. Pearson already told the story, actually, but I'm going to take it a step further. It's that story where Binay had a personal interview with Maharishi, and Maharishi asked him, how long does it take to teach a raga? And the traditional answer was many years. So Maharishi got him down to a day. It dawned on Binay that Maharishi literally wanted him to teach the wholeness, the unity of the raga in the first lesson. He wanted him to teach the deepest, most subtle musical essence in the first lesson and in every lesson. He wanted him to teach every lesson with reference to unity. This is a principle of teaching that Maharishi has given us in all areas, and so music is obviously no exception. What did this mean? This meant that being taught by Binay meant having him sing his heart out and play his heart out and explain in every lesson the deepest, most profound, most subtle, most exquisite aspects of the music. So this was a very special person, to say the least. And to give expression to unity was also Binay's one pointed goal as a performer. Or as he would say, I want to make it a little bit presentable. A concert goer once commented, with Binay's concerts, I experience a unified state of inner peace, sometimes lasts into the days after the concert. Binay, we will always hold dear our memory of you and your music in terms of the blissful flow of unity. Now it is my honor to read a passage from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita about the permanent nature of the innermost self of everyone. You grieve for those for whom there should be no grief, yet speak as do the wise. Wise men grieve neither for the dead nor for the living. There never was a time when I was not, nor you, nor these rulers of men, nor will there ever be a time when all of us shall cease to be. As the dweller in the body passes into childhood, youth, and age, so also does he pass into another body. He is never born, nor does he ever die, nor once having been, does he cease to be. Unborn, eternal, everlasting, ancient, he is not slain when the body is slain. One who knows him to be indestructible, everlasting, unborn, undying, how can that man, O Partha, slay or cause anyone to slay? As a man casting off worn-out garments takes other new ones, so the dweller in the body, casting off worn-out bodies, takes others that are new. Weapons cannot cleave him, nor fire burn him. Water cannot wet him, nor wind dry him away. He is uncleavable. He cannot be burned, he cannot be wetted, nor yet can he be dried. He is eternal, all-pervading, stable, immovable, ever the same. He is declared to be unmanifest, unthinkable, unchangeable. Therefore, knowing him as such, you should not grieve. Even if you think of him as constantly taking birth and constantly dying, even then, O mighty armed, you should not grieve like this. Certain indeed is death for the born, and certain is birth for the dead. Therefore, over the inevitable, you should not grieve. Creatures are unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in the middle state, and unmanifest again at the end, O Bharata. What grief is there in this? One sees him as a wonder, another likewise speaks of him as a wonder, and as a wonder another hears of him. Yet even on seeing, speaking, and hearing, some do not understand him. He who dwells in the body of everyone is eternal and invulnerable, O Bharata. Therefore you should not grieve for any creature whatsoever. Jai Gurudev.
Hi, my name is Evan Finkelstein. I had the privilege of teaching a course in the Bhagavad Gita to the master's students, and Binay was a student in that class. And what I remember most about him was his delight in Maharishi's knowledge. And another thing that I remember most about him, there's a word in Sanskrit called sharmadam, and Maharishi translates that word as being of very gentle, soft, tender, and harmonious qualities. And every time I would look at Binay, the meaning of that word would come to my mind. He was always so very gentle, so very soft, so very tender. And when he would see you, he would put his hand to his heart and look at you in the eyes and smile, showing that he honored you and loved you. And on my 60th birthday, some years ago, I asked Binay if he would play, for me. And he said, "Oh, of course." And we wanted to give him some remuneration, and he wouldn't accept it. He just wanted to play. And I feel that Binay, his name is Krishna. One of his names is Krishna. And we all know that Krishna is a very famous flute player. And when you would watch Binay play flute, it didn't seem like Binay was playing Gandharva Ved. It seemed to me that Gandharva Ved was playing him. And the flute is hollow, and what comes through it is the divine. And Binay, I felt, was someone who was like a flute. He was very humble, he was very open, and he allowed the music to come to him and through him. And that's why I felt that it was not so much that he was playing Gandharva Ved, but rather that Gandharva Ved was playing him. And it was a very beautiful and very inspiring experience, and very tender-hearted man, and love him very much, as we all did. Jai Gurudev.
How do you do? I'm Peter Wallace, and I felt very happy to have known this great gentleman. And as we got to know each other, we learned some things. And it was so wonderful because he was absolutely unique. I've lived in India, I've traveled in India, and I've met wonderful people in India, great saints, so on. But Binay, he was unique. And it's an honor to be able to say goodbye, hello to him, because I can think of incidents that happened when we were together. I remember going to a Stupajiveda mansion. It was an exact copy of Flow Drop, Maharishi's mansion, and he was so taken by it, by the wonder of the architecture. And it was way out of town here. And so I didn't know what to expect from him, because I'd seen him with the students and walking around campus, and I just didn't know how he'd be affected in this concert that he was giving in this beautiful place. And he was so affected. It was almost like a different person. You could not imagine that I didn't feel like I had met him before. And what it was this beautiful concert, but it was different than any other concert he'd given. I had the pleasure of hearing him give one when I was recovering from a stroke. And so I was wearing a bicycle hat because I was supposed to wear some kind of thing like that. And the beautiful music that came out off the stage at the school down here. And it was beautiful, but this concert, I hadn't been treated to this kind of music before, this beautiful architecture, just space out there and everything. And I remember that we were driving in my car, I had this little Jaguar sports car, and we were just laughing and having a good time on our way to this concert. And he was admiring everything and so on like that. And he seemed a little distracted. And so when we started going up these rocks like that to the dining room where the concert was, all the students were waiting there. and he made him fall. It just like, it looked like it was going to be a real problem. But somehow he just floated. And he just straightened himself out. And he gave the best concert I'd ever heard him give. It was so beautiful. And it was almost like the laws of nature were bowing down to Binay. So, Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. My name is Sandra Adams. And from the day Binoyji arrived in Fairfield, he was part of the family. I was with him every day during his tenure at MUM. What a great blessing for me. I loved it. He was humble, he was kind, he was direct, he was intelligent, and a very loving man who had traveled the world teaching Gandharva Ved and consciousness. I actually didn't know how far he traveled until I read Craig's little blurb on the back of the booklet that we all got. Very humble. And though we spent so much time together, I had no idea of his achievements. He was a global traveler and a great teacher without worldly ambitions, and to our great fortune, Maharishi sent him to MUM to share himself with us. So he taught our children at MSAE and at MUM, and also studied Vedic science and got his degree. He gave our children a love of making music, something very, very important to me. And even more, he gave them the understanding of Gandharva Ved through his love of and in the light of Maharishi's knowledge. For many of these students, it will be a lifelong gift bestowed upon them by our dear Binoyji. Binoyji taught Bansuri flute, and my son Josh was so privileged to be one of his longtime students. Binoy gave of his talent and his knowledge, and Josh soaked it all up. So now when my son travels the world, which he does, he may not take an extra pair of clothing, but there is always a flute in his flute case draped over one arm. Thank you, Binoyji, for your unparalleled gifts to us all. May your transition be filled with the music of the gods.
Hi, my name is Ken Woodward, and I'm a good friend of Binoy's. I met him about 10 years ago, I think, around the time he first came, and I started off by just kind of taking him around. My daughter was in his classes and sort of helping, driving him to places, and enjoying him on that level, but it quickly became much more of a friendship, and we spent many hours together. And most people, I think, know him as a musician and all the wonderful things he did for many people around the world. On that level, I began to know him more as a friend and a man behind the scenes, what he was like. And he had a lot of wonderful qualities, of course. He also had his issues and his needs to talk, and we would have long walks and talks many nights around the campus when all was quiet. He was a night owl, as I am, and we'd be walking when it was silent and discussing things. And one of the things he always talked about was his family. His mom, who wasn't well most of the time that he was here, and his brothers and sisters. And this is being recorded. I think maybe they'll see it and it'll be translated. I just wanted them to really know that he cared deeply about you, and even though he was traveling the world, doing what he was for everybody else, he was always thinking about his family and what he could do for them. And then, of course, money was an issue. And he talked often about trying to get $10,000 together to improve the house where the family lived. He was the oldest son, felt responsible for
the family, and of course he was away all the time. So we talked about that, and I told him someday maybe I can help you do that. So I'm hoping at some point we might be able to start some kind of fund for Binay and raise maybe $10,000 and give it to the family. That's one thought ahead. My daughter, as I mentioned, she's up there. She was playing the tampura on some of his concerts with Werner. And she sends her condolences and her love to Binay and the family. Binay was very special. He had a palpable silence that I experienced being around him, and very powerful personal presence, even though he was vibrant with his music. And he kind of filled the room. Whenever I would take him somewhere, when he came, everyone sort of, okay, Binay's here, let's enjoy now. And I got to experience that a lot, even in the walks. I mean, I was going through issues also in my life with him around that time when I was walking with him. So he would listen and we would share. It was like a real bonding, and I'm going to miss him deeply, actually. But I'm sure Maharishi has found an exalted place for him somewhere up there with him, and really playing music for the Devas. He talked about his relationships, and his hopes, and his feelings about leaving Fairfield. He didn't really want to leave Fairfield much. So near the end there, we had a lot of discussions about that, and then he came to realize it was the best thing to do because his mom needed him. So we were lucky, and he was lucky to spend about 1.5 years back in India with his mom. Well, one thing he told me, I don't know if anybody's heard this story, but he was actually wanting to be an Air Force pilot. Did you know that? And he actually was in the process of applying, and I think he told it to me, he was on his way to becoming that when his uncle decided that, no, he should play the flute, and convinced him not to be an Air Force pilot, but to become a Gandharvan flautist. So India's Air Force lost and our gain around the world. And he loved playing. He liked games, but he didn't get a chance to do a lot. I tried for 1 year, I think it was, to get him to play volleyball with us. Volleyball is like volleyball, but you play in a racquetball court, and you can bounce it off the walls. And he was very concerned that he would damage his fingers, his flute fingers. So for the first year, I kept trying to convince him he wouldn't do it. Finally, he did. So the last 2 years that he was here, we played every Monday night he played, and he was great. We actually had a clip. It was too grainy. We couldn't expand it here, but we'll probably put it up on YouTube if anybody's interested in seeing a very short clip of him playing volleyball. It was quite sweet, he loved it. One of the last things I did with him, he hadn't seen the Mississippi in the time he was here. I didn't realize that till near the end when he was getting ready to leave. So a few days before we left, we went to the Mississippi, and we went and we ate at one of the restaurants right in the water, and we took a walk along the shore. And he was very pensive, sitting there often looking at the water, thinking about his future, what was changing. But he was very happy. He enjoyed that. So, I've always left us here in the physical. I actually feel him pretty strongly with me, and I'm not one that feels a lot of stuff like that. So I do feel good that Binay is happy and well. I feel like he's letting me feel that it's all good, Kim. Because I was very upset when he died. I can actually kind of hear his voice ringing out. I don't know how many people knew Binay well enough, but he had a way of speaking to someone and saying their name. It was some Ken, Sophia, Justin, Karen, that little, he was like a commanding kind of thing, but a friendly, loving thing, like he was taking care of you, but in a, I'm the boss, but it was very sweet, actually. I can hear that quite a bit. So, last thing I had, when I was helping him leave, the night he left, we left at 4 in the morning, we were out packing things for hours before that, all day that afternoon into the night. And there was something he left behind, which I think he valued, but he forgot it. It was such a rush. It was a piece of paper that was taped to one of his doors that had been there for years. I'd been seeing him in his room there off and on for 5 years or more. And I picked it off the wall, and I have it here. It turns out it was a message from Pearson thanking him for spending time with them. So I thought I would just read it. It's fairly short. And it goes, "It would not be hard to imagine these same melodies that you played for Pearson to have been played in the royal court of Sri Ram of Ayodhya. This to effect the same result, expansion of awareness, to realize an enlightened vision of reality and the experience of bliss. You and your music are a precious gift Maharishi has allowed us to know and appreciate. Once again, sincere thanks for taking the time to favor us with these blessings. On behalf of Maharishi's Purushas, Jai Gurudev." Well, thank you, Binay. Thank you for being in my life and for helping a lot of other people in their lives with your music and your presence. God bless and Godspeed. Jai Gurudev.
Namaste. My name is Shankari Wegman, and it's hard for me to believe that our dear Binoyji has passed on. I feel like if I turn my head, I might see him on one of his quiet evening walks around the campus, no matter what the weather. I was fortunate to take lessons in the Bansuri flute with Binoyji while I was a student at MUM. Binoyji taught us the art of using our breath to create music, and it's a lesson that I have not ever forgotten. Thank you, Binoyji, for your patience and knowledge. It is something truly life-changing to sit at the feet of a master. He showed us how to move our breath, our prana, from deep within our bodies, through our heart and through our lungs, and breathe our being into the notes of the raga. When teaching us a new raga, he would always describe the feeling behind the composition in the most beautiful ways, such as the feeling of a peacock dancing in the rain, or the full moon rising in the horizon on a clear night. These descriptions of his allowed us to play from the finest feeling level, where our being, our breath, and the melodies of nature were all one. I will never forget his kind eyes, and will always carry his lessons on how to connect with my breath and move the prana within. These lessons I always carry with me. Maharishi describes prana as the vibratory nature of being that creates. All of Binoyji's music and his lessons created waves of happiness that still ripple in space and time. Wishing you ever-increasing waves of happiness, dearest Binoyji, as you continue your journey. Thank you for always teaching me how to breathe with all of my being.
Thank you very much, Karen and Shankari and everybody who's spoken so far. We are now going to have a musical interlude. Before we do that, I want to say that there's a table with paper where people can write down their condolences, which we will be sure will be sent to his family. And also, Binoy's CDs are on sale, and we'll try to find a way to get the proceeds from those CDs to his family also. So now we're going to hear a short performance by Werner Elmker. Binoy had an incredible ability to convey the most subtle emotional aspects of music of a rag, and Werner Elmker received many such finishing touches from Binoy, both in personal vocal lessons and from performing in concert with Binoy on Swara Mandala. So now he's going to give a very short version of Rag Darbari Kannada, composed by the legendary Drupad vocalist Mian Townsend. The main quality of this rag is deep inner silence. It's traditionally regarded as having a profound emotional depth and impact. And Werner is wearing a traditional outfit that Binay bought for him in India. So please welcome Werner Elmker.
Hare Personally engaged teacher I've had, and also one of my truest friends. I believe he put his whole heart into every concert he performed and every session he had with a student. There were times when we played in his room that something special happened. He'd be playing harmonium, and one or two or three of us would be playing raga we'd been practicing for weeks. He'd be singing some of the notes along with us, and we'd all be immersed in the music. That music. In that moment. Once we were playing, I think Rag Shivani. It was after dark on a warm, humid summer night, and we slid into that space. I don't know what everyone else felt, but we all felt something. I could see it on our faces and feel it in the sounds we made. The air was full and saturated with that feeling. It was serious and significant, and there was a part of me that wanted to smile and laugh from my belly. There was a moment when it dawned on me that we were transported somewhere special through that music, not like other places I'd been before. I was lucky to have the chance to meet Binayji's family in Chokta, northern suburb of Kolkata. I stayed with them for about a week and met some of Binayji's friends and fellow musicians. He could have taken a very different path with his life, but he found music, and that was it. And he knew it. He gave himself to music. And you could hear integrity when he played. It took him around the world to perform and teach. It attracted students, audiences, and sponsors. When I think of Binayji, I think of a man of sincerity, faith, and depth. I love him and appreciate him without hesitation. He's my role model for how to give my gifts to the world.
Hey, as the token disembodied voice, I guess I'll keep this quick. My name's Justin Cutter. I'm sure I know many of the people gathered in this room, and I feel very connected to you all tonight. I had the great fortune to spend the majority of my college experience by Binay's side learning from him. And one of the great experiences that stands out was when I used to get to play tambura with him during a concert. At one particular concert, I remember because he had been planning on playing this one raga, and he announced it to the audience and described the qualities of that raga. And then he closed his eyes, and I started off the tambura, that drony stringed instrument. And he put the flute to his mouth and blew, and a different note came out. And he played an entirely different raga. And I was quite surprised, and afterwards, as we were sharing a dinner of bitter melon, which I actually developed a taste for, it's a terrible, terrible thing, but when Binay cooks it for you, you eat it, and eventually it definitely grew on me. I asked him why he played that other raga, and he said, I know, Justine. I wanted to play this one raga I was practicing, but when I closed my eyes and started, a different raga just came out. He said that's what the audience needed at that night, and it wasn't about what I wanted, it was about what they needed. Binoyji was a true Gandharvan, not just a master of Indian classical music, but somebody who could translate the laws of nature into sound and could have an effect on his surroundings because of that. He was also a very dear friend, somebody who was phenomenally wise and compassionate. And the only time I've ever known a real close master-disciple relationship was by his side, because my heart was completely open to him, completely surrendered, and his was completely open as well. And when he spoke, the knowledge just passed into me and became a part of me instantly. It was a very, very special time in my life. And the friendship that we had lasted long afterwards. I will miss Binoyji very, very much.
Jai Gurudev, my name is Werner. I just want to say a little bit about my experience with Binoyji. I think it could not be much better than what story about Binoyji is than what all these dear friends of Binay have spoken. So just a short conversation with Binay before his left his body actually. I took a lesson with Binay around 6 years now, until last 2 weeks ago I still had music lesson with him. Interestingly actually, first time I learned the flute actually, I said to Binay, I have no sense of any musical instrument before. And he said, just come. And I came, and first lesson was, I can blow the flute. And he said, you see, that's, your name is not for nothing, he said to me. Yeah, my name is Soren, it means flute. So it means flute player, so it must be something, he said. So continue, he said. Then I continue playing, busy and stop sometimes. But he's really master for me. He's a master. He's also my friend. He also I actually take care some of his health. Actually, I routinely take his pulse and recommend some herbs for him. It's quite routine. Until in India, I still do that actually. And first I learned Yaman, and then last rag that I learned, also Yaman, but it didn't finish actually. I just got like 4 lines, and in the third line I said to Binayji, I like this third line. The first and the second is just plain for me, but the third is a really different line. The tone is different, I said. Yes, that is different, he said. He gave me a take tal, so the 10-beat cycle, and it goes like 2, 3, 3, 2. But the third line is come 2, 3, 2, 3. So why it's different? And he gave me an analogy. He said that if you see people, maybe it's look ugly, but inside it's not. No, he said, no, it's different. So that's what the tone means, he said to me. So the greatness that what I learned from Binayji is actually, he always gives analogy. A lot of notes I take, but I always remember the analogy that he gave. every rap, every composition he gave, rich of analogy. So it means that I don't need to see all the notes, just remember the analogy. It's so great, so beautiful, it's really master. So a few days ago, I still feel like I said myself, why you leave us, why you leave us? That's coming a few times with me, but I believe that Krishna wants him to be beginning, play his flute. I thought that, so that's the best. That's how nature turns. I think that will be the best for him. So it's best for him, only not best for us, because we had, we lost him, but he's in the divine music with Krishna, I believe now. So not much saying, but we had a very, very great master, and we are very fortunate we have him here. It's just a small prayer for him. Maybe I quote from the Upanishad, Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityumar Amrityumar Amritam Gamaya Loka Samasta Skino Bhavantu. Jai Gurudev.
I'd just like to say a few words before I play. The very first memory I know of Binay, I was at CLC in 2003, and I had the idea that I should perform for the celebration. So I played up front, I was standing for the dryer, and in back, Binay was right next to my mother, crying, saying, "I didn't know he could do that." That was one of the fun memories. And another fun memory, we would spend much time together on an lap of a particular rock, for example, Shankara. He would refine it and refine it. He would ask me to play the lap, and afterwards he would work with me on a certain line that I thought could not get any better. He would just take it to the next level. I remember he kept me for an extra hour one time, and I did not want to leave. It was just so beautiful being in his presence. When he picked up his flute to play once, I was awestruck at how beautiful and the sound was. The stories he would tell was so inspiring and helped me understand myself. Thank you for your inspiration, your friendship, and for all the cherished moments together, dear Binay. It was such an honor to know you and to have you as a dear friend and teacher. I will miss you.
Greetings, fellow students of Binay, friends, colleagues of Binay. I knew Binay before I really knew even about the Vedic Science program. I came here the summer before I actually enrolled. So for me, Maharishi University of Management always had Binay. It was always something I associated with MUM, was these flute lessons with Binay. And we selected a rag to conclude this evening's program. And we were really fortunate to have it because Binay didn't like to have himself recorded. So the fact that we even have one full rag is thanks to Soren, I believe. So I just wanted to alert your attention to one thing. At the beginning when he's about to play, the look that he has, or that state that he's in, where he's fully alert to his environment, Justin spoke about that. So we had that unconditionally in our lessons. He would greet us like, Karen, how are you? Or Justine, how are you? But it wasn't a greeting, it was actual, like a scanning, checking in. And based on that, the lesson would unfold. And it was all based on bringing us back to the self. And the rag was simply the means. It's like the rag, he would use the rag to draw the best out of us and then take us back home to the self. So as you watch the rag clip, you'll notice he's scanning the audience, and it's like he becomes the vehicle of nature, and then a rag comes out. And we, as students, we got to enjoy that effect every lesson. I mean, that was the quality of his attention at every lesson. That's why we feel that strongly connected with him. It's a really unique relationship.
We're going to close our celebration of Binay's life now with a video of Binay himself playing for us. So this is about 20 minutes. We hope everybody can stay for this whole thing.
That's very important. We want to develop ourselves. So that's why I choose this art. And after that I will play. I will tell you that. That's why it's innocence.
Events like these don't happen by themselves. Planning for this evening has taken place all this past week. I want to give special thanks to the planners and organizers, Karen Aoki, Margot Sutman, Soren Pearson, Isabel Matskin, Joel Bresner, Ken Woodward, Rihanna Koppel, Amine Kouider, Harry Bright, and Maharishi University of Management Press. Take Benoit's music with you in the form of one of the CDs if you like. Do take an extra minute or two and leave your thoughts or appreciations for Benoit on the stationery that's available up top. Thank you all to everyone who spoke tonight. What a beautiful array of moving and heartfelt tributes. Maharishi gave us some guidance on how to respond when we lose a loved one, and that is to send them off with waves of love and appreciation. Waves of love and appreciation, and that is exactly what we all created together tonight. Thank you all for joining us to celebrate the life of our dear and beloved Binay Krishna Baral. Jai Gurudev.